So, good evening. It's incredible to see you all today at Sopra Steria Mendix Meetup. My name is Ira Bozic, and I'm a community program manager at Mendix, and I run the global Mendix Meetups program. And yeah, today I'm glad to open one of the most frequent meetups at Sopra Steria, and just wow, I mean, so many people tonight. We got more than 100 registrations. It's huge, and I mean it's great to see you all here because you could have chosen anything. You could have chosen to stay home. You could have chosen to just lay on a couch or do something else entirely. But instead, you made a powerful choice. You chose to come to learn, to grow, and you chose the community. So I admire that. Tonight, we're going to have a couple of speakers. And I think I'm not going to say everything because I will not say it properly. But hey, thank you very much to our partner Sopra Steria for organizing the meetups almost every quarter. I also want to say a personal thank you to Wouter, to Aswin, and to Jeremy and all the entire team that are doing this. You're putting your energy, your passion into organizing meetups, Mendix meetups, and we do appreciate it a lot. It doesn't stay unnoticed. Thank you very much. So I'm not gonna keep us waiting. Thank you again, everyone, each one of you for coming tonight. Thank you, the speakers and the hosts, and enjoy the meetup.
Thank you for that kind introduction. My name is Sander Timmermans. I'm a DevOps engineer with a passion for test automation at Sopra Steria. And especially for UI testing, that part, I really think it's magical when you see a test that's fully automated and performs mouse clicks and UI key presses. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. Thank you, Sander. I'm Matthias. I'm a Mendix expert developer here at Sopra Steria with a focus on quality. And I'm pretty happy that so many people have chosen to learn about quality, because sometimes when I talk to developers, they say, that's it, I don't like it. I think differently. So I'm really happy to have you here. And let's not wait longer. And Sander will give it a go. Thanks.
This is our agenda for tonight. First, we will be giving you some context going into the history, and with history we mean automation tools that we typically use to test the Mendix apps in production. Then next, we will give a bit of an insight in the current state of affairs. Of course, it is related to Menditect and the UI testing part, which is new in MTA. Then my colleague Matthias will be showing the demo, which we are all looking forward to. And in the end, we will have some room for some questions and answers. So first, a little bit about the history. And I want to take you guys back to 2009, way back, and want to introduce the testing pyramid concept to you. This concept is introduced in 2009 by Mike Cohn in his book, Succeeding with Agile. And I especially like this concept because it is really a strong visual metaphor to group tests into separate layers. So you've got the unit tests layer, component test layer, process UI layer, but also, as you can see, the dotted line into tests that are separated in front-end tests and into back-end testing. What I especially like about this concept is that it shows you how much testing you should be doing on each layer. So really the bulk of your testing effort, your automation effort, should take place in the unit testing layer and become a little bit less when you move up to the top of the testing pyramid. Why is that? Because moving up into the testing layers, the tests they typically become quite a bit slower, but they tend to have more integration calls. Moving down the layers, the tests become faster and with more isolation. So also in the top of the testing pyramid, in the UI part, there are some extra complexities, like finding good and stable locators for your tests to perform the clicks on, stuff like that. Also, with this testing pyramid, this concept, there are of course some common pitfalls. One of those pitfalls is not doing anything in layer 2 until layer 1 is complete. Layer 1 will never be complete, of course, so it's wise to pick up some test automation effort in every layer from the get-go. Another common pitfall, which I've also I'm guilty of myself, is building an upside-down testing pyramid. So basically, that means focusing the bulk of my test automation effort, my time, in the UI testing part. That's the part that I like the most, and I think it's really magical, but it's a pitfall. Okay, so when we take this into account, when should we automate? Because we don't need to automate everything, of course, but I think apps really need to test automation when they are, of course, mission critical for your enterprise. They contain a lot of complex business logic, a lot of processes and/or transactions. When they have complicated microflows, are updated frequently, of course, because every time when you move an app from acceptance to production, it is really a peace of mind when you have a good test automation suite that performs well and you can move that app to production with a lot of confidence and peace of mind. And of course, when the app is really integrated into your application landscape, for example, with a lot of incoming, outgoing REST APIs. So why should we automate them? It is, of course, not a holy grail, and it will not deliver app quality by itself. Matthias is automation, quality first mindset type of guy. This will not do that out of itself. But automated tests, they really do provide fast feedback. So when a bug is introduced, you know it in a matter of seconds, minutes, instead of days or weeks. And in the worst case scenario, on production, when a user finds it. Also, it will save you money performing all those tedious clicks in the UI, going through every screen, triggering every flow. It takes a lot of time, the manual clicking time. So automating those tests will save you money. And of course, just mentioned already previous, it allows teams to move fast to production and with confidence, with ease of mind. So even a big migration isn't a piece of cake when you've got trust in your test automation skills. And last but not least, it saves you from a lot of boring, tedious, repetitive work. To go a little bit deeper into each of the layers of the testing pyramid. First up, the unit test layer, and I will share something about the tools that we typically use up until now. To start off, a little bit of a definition. This is always debatable. When I will ask three developers what a unit test of a unit is, I will get 4 answers probably. So, but for now, this is the definition that we will use. So it's a small piece of logic which has a predictable outcome based on some limited number of inputs. For Mendix applications, those typically are like Java actions and some microflows. I explicitly say some microflows because a unit can be a microflow, but not every microflow is in fact a unit. But that's something to take in consideration, especially when developing with Mendix. So for the unit testing layer, typically we use the Mendix unit testing module, and it had a pretty big upside that it is fast in test execution time. It makes devs, of course, think more about the code. It's in the Mendix Studio Pro, so that's already a big plus. The downside of this module is that the test code is in the Mendix app itself. So it makes the app bigger with more code. And of course, yeah, you create microflows to test microflows, which is kind of a strange thing. Also, it is lacking a little bit in the data-driven testing part. I see Marcus also in the room, and I think also a couple of other people from Menditect. This really is a part where MTA or Menditect is really strong in. And it has no test run history. There are just some pros and cons about this tool that we use on this layer. So moving up to the component test layer. First, starting again with a little bit of a definition. In this layer, typically, we test the interface with different inputs. And you can think of API calls in this layer. For these kinds of test automation, we typically use tools like Postman or SoapUI. They do come with a benefit that the test code is not in the Mendix app itself. They do support some form of data-driven testing. Of course, they do not support a UI testing capability, nor do they provide a unit test capability. And also, for your enterprise, this means another app to maintain. You have to have Postman or SoapUI present to do these kinds of testing. Moving up to the process layer. Start again with a small definition. This process testing layer tests the integrations in one or multiple systems. So you have got one test suite, for example, to clean up your old data from another test run. Then one test suite for creating the data for the test run that you are going to process right now. And one or more test suites per business process that you would like to automate. This is typically done with Menditect, with MTA. As you can see, the 3 layers are blue in this picture. So with MTA, it was already possible to tick all the boxes from those 3 layers. The pros of MTA is that it is quite fast in execution time. It's still a low-level backend test, so it's really fast. Also, it makes devs think more about their code that they're producing. Another benefit compared to the unit testing module from Mendix is that the test code itself is not in the Mendix app. They do support, and I think that's really a the key point here, that they do support data-driven testing, makes it a lot easier compared to the Mendix unit testing module. And they provide test run history. Up until now, they didn't have a UI test capability. I think this is a really good cliffhanger, but we will come back to that in a minute. First, we're going to move up to the top of the testing pyramid, the UI layer. Again, a little bit of a definition, context. UI tests, they validate that the application works for end users. So user input should trigger the correct expected actions. Data should be presented to the user, and the UI state should change as expected when you perform a click or whatever. Up until now, we used ATS for this part of the testing pyramid. It is a web application. It has some big pluses as well. The tool itself was no-code tool. It supported data-driven testing. Another big plus is that the test code itself is not in the Mendix app. But ATS also came with some downsides, of course. And that is you had to make use of an explicit Mendix wait step. And those steps tended to make your test execution quite slow. Also, it had limited functionality. For example, the file handling, when you should perform an Excel import, it was difficult to really test that with ATS because of it had no option to perform local runs. And you had to run it on a Selenium hub somewhere in the cloud. And for that, you also needed a browser stack license or SOS level from a Proximodo Selenium hub. I think so much for the history part. And now we're going to take a look at the current state of affairs of the test automation for Mendix apps. The newest open source automation framework for web applications is Playwright. Some people already know it when I was just talking during the dinner. It has a big plus compared to, for example, a tool like ATS, and that is the auto wait functionality. It's really a key point because tests really tend to break due to waiting issues. So that this comes out of the box with this framework is really a nice addition. It has cross-browser support, so it is possible to test your executions on every major browser vendor out there. It supports multiple tab testing, but there's basically one downside to this, and that is the high code part. So Playwright has an API which you can use, and it's like a JavaScript or Java or C# or .NET. So it's a high code test automation framework. So wouldn't it be nice if we could combine the MTA part, which already ticks 3 of the boxes, 3 of the layers, with something like Playwright that we just mentioned. That's exactly the case that's been done now with Menditect. It's still just released, but it is supported right now. So it's possible to combine your backend and UI tests all inside one tool, which is easy to use. It fixes the high code part that we just mentioned a sheet ago, which was a downside of using Playwright in the high code variant. It uses the Mendix model itself in order to create robust locators, finders, which is also always a tedious part of test automation with the automation framework. A nice addition is that it measures the code coverage of your UI tests. So it also gives you an idea of how much you've already ticked off in your tests. And all your tests are in one tool. Next up is Matthias, who will be showing the demo and going into some more background about how this is actually achieved. Matthias.
Yeah. Thanks, Anders. First of all, thanks for this nice introduction of the pros and cons of the previous tools and the history and where we are now. Indeed, you are all curious on how exactly that Menditect has performed this integration. How exactly did that? So to start off, let's look a bit at the architecture. We don't need to go all into details. We just need to focus on the bottom part and especially the middle part. There is a bit where the connection magic happens. So first of all, you have some different modules. You have the MTA plugin, which is mentioned and which goes right into your Mendix application. So the MTA plugin module takes care of the connection between both your Mendix app and MTA. And otherwise, we have the Playwright connector module, which is actually making the connection with the Playwright server and which calls the API from Playwright, which does the necessary actions from Playwright. Last but not least, Sander already mentioned that it has cross-browser support. That's true, but if you need more, for instance, you want to emulate on local, on mobile devices, you could still use a browser stack license, which is separate of this picture, and we will not discuss that here, but it's important, I think, for all of you guys to know this. So let's first go over this MTA plugin module. Again, it's the link between MTA and your Mendix app. So of course, first step, if you want to use it, is to import it and just drag and drop it in your after startup. And right away, it gets the connection between by using a WebSocket between MTA and Mendix. So that's easy, just 1, 2, 3. Another module, which I've talked about, is the Playwright connector. I told you it takes the bridge between MTA and Playwright. And Sander has already mentioned a bit, Playwright is this open source framework. But what exactly can it do then? So there are two concepts that I think are important for you to remember, which are the actions, which is everything that you need to do or can do with a mouse. You can click a button, you can check a text box, you can select something from a radio button, you can fill some text. So all of these are the actions that you physically do with a widget. And a widget here in Playwright terms or is mentioned by a locator. So locator is basically the widget, is the button, is whatever that you want to make an action with. Then it's very nice that you can click a button, but by this you do not do any tests, you just do the manual repetitive work. It's also important to realize that you need to test something. Very important is with a UI test, it's a top button, so you do not want to test a lot. You just want to test for it. For example, is a button visible? Is a page, has it a certain title? Does it contain any text? So stuff like that, stuff that you normally would do with, for instance, conditional visibility, those kind of stuff you can test or you need to test with a UI test. Everything the logic before needs to be done on the unit testing framework. And I will show it into the demo on how you can think about it and how you could look at it. And last but not least, we have the bridge between Mendix and Playwright. Very nice. But now Mendix, as you all know, has some kind of special way sometimes to generate widgets. The HTML is not that pretty all the time. So therefore, it's pretty nice to have the Menditect Starter Kit, which is the third module and the last module, which is really important. And that covers all the standard data Mendix widgets. All of them are supported, most of the standards one, with an exception, for instance, for the data grid through, but I will come back into that in a moment on how you could eventually solve this. So an example here is an action from the starter kit, which is the Mendix data picker field. So it does what you expect it to do. It just selects a date from a date picker. But the nice thing is that it combines the locator, which is typically Mendix-like, the date picker, which you can see as an input parameter, and it uses an action from the Playwright connector, which is to just fill the date. So now you can see the bridge between all of these three modules. And these are the important ones to import, otherwise it won't function. Then you have a, how should I call it, optional module, but a very nice module, which is the example app. So Menditect has provided you with a easy to use application, just a dummy application, which is a data grid, and you fill some stuff and you remove some stuff. But the nice thing is that you can use it as an inspiration. It has a full microflow, which can serve you as your basis for your MPA test that you want to configure in Menditect. So that's how you can start with it. If you don't feel comfortable or going right away, you can use this app to get or know where you start. Then we have imported all the modules. Very nice. Now we need to know what we're going to do in Mendix. So 3 modules. What should you do then in Mendix to prepare a bit or to be able to use the Playwright module? So Playwright, as with every automation framework, relies heavily on selectors. You want to be able to locate an item as precisely as possible. So that's why sometimes, or it is necessary in Mendix to already give some hints to Menditect to, okay, I can find this element there. And to start off, we have our highest page, which is the page. So the first thing you would like to do is add a class to your page, which has the same title as your page. So here you can see an overview of books. Very, very easy. It's a scenario that we are going to use. And the first step is to add a class to that, just to be able to select from NPA to where this is going to. Another part, you see a lot of widgets, you see some buttons, you see the data grid. These needs to be contained in an enumeration. So right now, this is still the case. In the future, this will be done automatically. Right now, you should still use an enumeration just to locate or to make a list of all the widgets that are available. And from this list in Menditect, you can select one of them. For instance, you want to test the button to buy a book. Okay, you select this in Menditect. And then a second part is then give exactly the same name. And it's important, it's one of the best practices we are going to give you to always use descriptive names. You do not want to use a button, action button 1, 2, 3, 4 as basically is standard, because otherwise the tester will not know what it's about. I mean, and that's also one of the major points that is nice to have in Menditect is that you can cross the border to your tester. You can reach out and say, did you see this button? It's called like this, and you can use it in this way. Otherwise, up till now, there are a lot of borders between developers and testers, and they were living next to each other. The developers thought, okay, I'm just going to throw it all over the border, and the tester does whatever he does with it. I don't know, doesn't interest me. But with this tool, it's NPA. That's the nice thing about this, is that you can really communicate with each other, the developer to the testers and vice versa. The tester will can finally ask help. Okay, but how can I automate it? if he doesn't know yet. And last but not least, we have a microflow, which gives back a locator. And there, it's a reusable microflow. There are two things, and it's nicely set to configure me. There you need to put as an input parameter the enumeration that I just mentioned, and you need to add the page name, that the class that I mentioned. So that's all about to get the correct locator. It literally says, take a look in this page and take a look at this widget, and you will find a locator. Okay, so if you look at the structure that I have in the application, you see the page, you have some microflows that we want to test, and we have the three things, the three important parts. Of course, we can always go a bit further. We were not, I wouldn't say happy, but I think some stuff could be improved. Like for instance, Playwright gives you the opportunity to make screenshots. It's a nice to have, but in Menditect so far, what you had to do was give it a name, and then each test execution, it was called screenshot 1 or whatever the name that it would give you. That's not really reliable. After a while, you get lost. I see 300 screenshots 1 in my test history in my app. I wouldn't know to which screenshot that would refer. So that's why we would recommend to make a custom screenshot name, which could be done like this, with also the parameters that you see here, with some test tips on test cases. And the beauty of this is that you can reuse this microflow. You can put it in Menditect, and it will give you the string that you want it to be. So that's one of the things that we thought that could be nice. Another part, I've mentioned the data grid tool. It was not supported. For this, we need to go a bit into details. I'm sorry about it. So this is the HTML structure of a normal data grid, the data grid one, not normal. Let's call it data grid 1. And it automatically comes with these classes. It says MX name index 1. You know, okay, this is the first row of the data grid. It comes automatically. You don't need to do anything about it. So it's very handy as a tester to use this class, because then you know at least, okay, I'm in that row and I can do some stuff. I can click on it. I can select it. I can do whatever that I want with it. However, if you look at data grid 2, you have this. It's not really speaking. You have to be lucky to, you have to guess a bit the R to what it refers to. You have the sequence, but that's it. And that's not ideal. It's not unique, so to say. So a possible gateway or possible solution for this is to use some dynamic classes yourself. And that's the part where it becomes interesting. That's the part where you can ask the testers, okay, I have added this class. Does this help you? Or you can do, or you can, tester can ask you, okay, how should we do it? Because it's not supported. And the whole idea is to make it as precise as possible. And then with the new Mendix 10.18, it's automatically, I'm using here a helper attribute. You don't have to do this. It was for me a nice thing to see that you could use the current index in a loop, and then automatically you could fill this helper attribute with that value. And by this you achieve a bit the same as with the data grid 1. And it's nice, it's consistent, and the tester doesn't even have to know whether it's a data grid 1 or 2, doesn't have to care. You can follow a bit the same logic. I think that's a nice part about this as well, is that if you own the application, if you work with it, you know where to look for. And that's also our third point in our best practice list. These only test applications that you really own. I mean, technically it's possible to test with NPA another application if you would like to, but then you will lose basically, I think, 50% of the power, because yeah, you don't have insight in the model yourself, and you cannot add stuff if you would like to. So that's about the current index in a loop. which I think is very handy. And I've put an ID on the form to also have it as a page variable, because I don't get it that you don't have it as a page variable, whether here you just have it out of the box. So it would be nice as a testers to have it available, but also to show in the front end the number of the row, for instance. Last but not least, there we have our third action, which is the microflow, which is based on this logic. And you see that it calls a locator, which is the data grid, and then another selector that you would like to use. All right, I think it's time to go to MTA and to see a bit on what we are going to do. So in a nutshell, as I've told you, we have a small scenario. It's a bookshop, very easy to use. I think there is one kind of important or interesting part about this is that there you have the buy button. If you have a quantity which is higher than 0, and if the quantity is 0, the button is not visible anymore. And actually, this is the only thing that you want to test with the UI part. You want to test the logic of the buy button. Well, you can do it, or you have to do it with a unit test, because there you have multiple cases. And otherwise, you would have to make use of 3 different UI parts just to achieve this. The same with the new book. The new book. It's very appealing to just start off, and I think I'm gonna add the book to the list. I can use it for my test. It's very handy, but it's exactly not what you should do, because the data preparation, you have access in Menditect to do it. You have access to just create the necessary data, wherever that you want. So please don't start with this book. Never just touch it, because it does not add any visual value. So if we have to go to Menditect, you see here the Menditect interface. As you see, it's a web application. And we have 3 test suites. One of them is a template test suite, which I will come back to in a moment. And here we have our unit tests. And if we take a look at this, they are very short, because basically you only want to validate, or you only want to test one microflow at a go. It consists of 3 items. Now, the power of Menditect, as Sander already mentioned, is in here. It's the data variation. You have some mandatory fields. If you look at the microflow, it needs to have a title. The date needs to be in the future. And the price, cannot be 0. All of this can be achieved with these different scenarios. Again, if you look at the microflow, you also see that there are some data validations, some validation messages. Again, this is a perfect flow that you could achieve with like 5 UI tests, but that's again not the aim. Here you can do it in just 1 test case, and you are done. So if you execute this, we have an open connection with MTA, which you can see here. And let's execute it and wait. And you will see that automatically the test runs are been doing just fine. They are registered here. You have number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And then everything is done. So it has executed 7 tests for about, 2 seconds. I didn't count it. And we see here, here is an error. You immediately see it, it's red. And if you take a look, you see that in the date part, because I've tested here whether or not the validation message is here on the publisher date. I see that here there is an unexpected message on the price. So if we look at our test code, we're going to see here that indeed I've been too lazy. I'm a fan of copy paste, but I forgot to change here the variable member because it automatically says is caught by Menditect. If we then change it and we rerun it, so the nice thing is also because of the WebSocket, you don't have to push something to MTA or something. You just rerun it and we can re-execute it. We're going to see whether or not we have done our work properly this time. So that's the nice part about it. It's really fast. You get immediately feedback. And this is something, imagine that you have to put this into test. It's a bit clumsy. It's going to wait you 1 day before it returns because the tester had other stuff to do just because of this stupid, copy paste mistake. I mean, we've all been there. I'm still doing it and I still make errors, but at least I can find them earlier than we used to. So this is about the unit test. We've covered all of our validation flows with just one flow. Now, if we go to the UI part, that's the beauty, or that's the nice part about it. We have our data preparation, and this itself is also a test. Because if you turn on the security, you immediately know if you have the rights to change or create or delete an object, which is not something that is always caught immediately by a normal test, because you have the microflow and there you don't set the security to true and it just passes away until you want to call it to a nanoflow and then immediately say, ah, crap, security was wrong. So this is also an example of how it can help you. And this is also another best practice is to control your test data. I mean, you can delete it first, then you know everything that you need to know. And you want to create a book with exact the quantity that you need. And that's very important to have a regular maintainable test and repeatable, because that's the aim of a test. You do not want to test just random data. You want to test controllable data, which has a predictive value. All right. Now we have here our UI part. And you see that it consists of 9 pretty much basic steps, basic setup sets. And that's why this template suite is a handy tool, we think, because these tests will never change. I mean, you always have to start a test, create a test, make use of different browsers. And if you want to edit, you can just use this copy from button, and then you can retake the suite where you end up to. And that saves you a lot of time. If you're going to go through again, if, as I already mentioned, we're going to take some screenshots. We're going to use the microflow that I showed you to create those screenshots. We're going to select the locator that we want, so the button, for instance, and then we're going to do a test and an action. That's also a bit the parameter or the structure that we want to maintain. First select the locator, then do whatever that you need to do with it. And we're going to see whether or not the locator is visible. And the last part is we're going to see if the quantity has changed. So these are these two steps. And the last but not least is some tear down. Okay, now let's see what this will give you. And as Sander already mentioned, Playwright has some various browsers which are supported. And that's also, of course, important for the accessibility that it runs automatically on Chrome, Firefox, and WebKit through the use of the data variation, which is essentially being used for a data grid variation, but can always be used here as well within MTA. So this is the preparation file. It has deleted all the books. Very nice. And you immediately see that it waits a bit longer. Right? We have 30 steps to just do a simple UI test of clicking a button, checking if it's visible or not. So that's really the downside of these sets, and that's why you should minimize them. Okay, we run into another issue. We see here that it has clicked the button. It is grayed out, but apparently nothing else happens. And that's the good thing of assertions in a UI part. It immediately stops the tests. In a lower part, in the data variation part, you have the option to continue your test, even a search fails or not. You have seen it. It just runs the test consistently. Here, in the UI part, because of the logic of Playwright, if you do an assertion and it fails, the test is immediately broken off. And it says even in your console that it expected the value to be visible, but yeah, that it would not be visible, but it is still visible. And here again, if you see a bit closer, you see that we forgot to refresh the client. And of course, then nothing happens and our test has failed. Again, we're going to do the refresh so we are sure or hope to be sure that this time it does the work. So let's rerun it. Again, it takes time to prepare. But it's also the only thing that we need to test again. And I cannot stress this enough to make use of this concept of the test pyramid to really think about what you will automate in what layer, because it's very seductive to just click everything that you want through the UI. And the business will also ask it. The business, it says, we will need a regression test. First, please go through all the flows on the UI. But it's not a smart thing to do. And that's a nice thing. If you have a tool where everything is combined, at least the testers also has an ID. Oops. Now, one of it, we'll see. So at least the tester has also an ID on what has already been automated and what not. You can also follow it. It can run without a headless browser, so we can just run it into the background. But here it's nice that you can at least see what the application has been doing in all the 3 browsers that we have been using for this test. All right, that's another button. You can see here, this is a this was the dummy button. And if we take a look at this test, it's really, you have again, the locator, and you have the click, and you close the success message that was behind it. And that's all of the box. You just have to do the enumeration. You say, okay, I want to have this button, and it does everything out of the box. So let me just click that open. You see it, you know it's a button, you know which is the name of the button, and you select it and you click it. So last not but least, a very nice and powerful thing about Playwright is that you can have some trace files, which you can see here. This is a snippet which comes from the starter kit module. So it's already there. And if you import it, you can see exactly what has been done where with all the screenshots that you want. You see the red thing indicates, okay, I've clicked this. You see the network tab. So you have a complete output of whatever has been done. So it's really powerful for you as a developer as well to be able to finally see what the tester has done. Because normally if a tester gives you a bug, it will be like, hey, screenshot, if you are lucky, screenshot, please fix this. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know what I did. I just clicked around. I just did random stuff. At least with this file, you know what he intended to do, and you did have a view on whatever actions that were made.
After 5 minutes were made.
Yeah. So I think, and then last but not least, you have here also the screenshots that you have with a nice frame rate. You see, okay, it's been done at 752, and you know at least where to look and what the outcome was. So after buy, you immediately see that the button was indeed gone. All right, I think we are done for our demo quite in time, which leaves us basically for questions and answers. I've put the necessary screenshots into the presentation together with the best practices, which are here, which are being mentioned throughout the presentations. You can find them with dots in the presentation for future reference. But I think we are very curious to see what you think about it, if you have any questions. And yeah, let's give it away. And if we don't know it, Marcus is already always there, so we will try to answer them as well as possible. Yeah, I don't know any names, so I will just do this.
Wow. Thank you.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. My main question would be, what was your previous knowledge of Playwright?
Well, I did have experience with Selenium and with Playwright as well. I knew how it looked. I knew the possibilities. So yeah, that's for me. It was very easy to make the link of what I already did, high code wise, so to say, and to this. But to be honest, if you don't know Playwright, you just read, yeah, it clicks the button, you try it, and yeah, it clicks the button. To me, it spoke very much for itself, so to say.
Be my question behind the question. To what extent does a low-code Mendix developer need to know Playwright to really get the hang of it and use it properly?
Yeah.
Because my assumption would be that it would be helpful to know at least 35% the range of Playwright to start producing something helpful.
I think what is really necessary and what I've been trying also to do is that you think about the way you test. If you think about the logic that you need to do it in the UI part, in the unit testing layer, and the visual part in the UI part of layer, that's already, in my extent, 70% of the work. And then the other 30 is indeed, Playwright. I don't think you really have to know it because it's always there in microflows. So if you look into the module, you have the option to call a microflow, and that's it. It's like building Mendix, but then just with Playwright APIs behind. So yeah, to me, I don't think you really have to know Playwright. It always helps if you know the possibilities, and then you can Google, does Playwright support this or that? Because not everything that is possible in Playwright is already in MTA, but you can always ask Marcus to do some other stuff in MTA. He will, but that's not my responsibility, so to say.
Thanks.
I saw another question.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I got the question about the licensing. Do you need a license for Playground and maybe also Menditect then?
Yes, you need a license. Again, I refer to Marcus for all the practical discussions, but you need a license. No, but
Thank you.
Yeah, I can do it without the mic as well. That's okay.
It's a strong voice.
Multiple applications, say you have a process where you need link one app to the other. Do you do that in the same test run?
It's a good question. I didn't try it out myself, but I think you could. Yes.
In your perspective, it doesn't matter because the test case refers to any location, could be Google at whatever is in one set. From the backend testing, each test case connects to one application, but you can do multiple applications in one test suite and also in one run. So yes, you can do backend testing for microservices architectures and also UI testing on microservices. Yeah, in one run. Yeah, that's possible. Yes.
During the presentation, you mentioned being able to use a tool like Browser Stack as well to UI test native applications. Is that something that you've done already? And if so, how well does it work?
I didn't do it myself yet. I know with ATS, it worked a bit exactly the same way. But I did hear good things about it. Of course, you cannot do native actions like making a picture, logging in with fingerprints, stuff like that. But the emulator in itself does the work pretty well.
Thank you.
Final question.
So my question is that we can use this over private cloud as well, if our application is deployed in private cloud.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And 2 final questions, maybe.
Don't fight.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I would like to ask, what are the limitations for UI testing with Menditect? You mentioned something about data grid 2. Would it be possible to test on pages using custom widgets, for example?
Yeah, sure. But then you would need to add some custom styling like yourself. So the main idea stays be as precise as possible. So do first a general locator, so to say, over your custom widget, and then be as precise as possible. And if you have a custom widget, you can add as many classes, as many locators. If you don't want to add a class, you can find it by text, by role. It has several options, but you will get there. No limitations there. It just needs a bit of more custom twiddling around and trial and error probably. But besides that, there is no limitation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so you also use heavily rely on classes. So that's basically how Mendix works in terms of locators. Do you agree that you would also really like to have a property defined that you can, for instance, apply on each and every widget to, for instance, specify a data test locator, for instance, and use that? Would that also really help if you choose creating your test cases or targeting elements more or more easily?
I think it's a bit of what you are used to. If you are used to working with class, I don't think it makes a lot of difference to add an extra property there just to do a bit the same work. You see what I mean? Because you can also target an element by role or by text or again by anything that you want. So I don't think it would help us there a bit further. And again, native widgets are pretty well with the NTI are already pretty well available and pretty well standardized, I would say. So I don't see the real advantage or real need for such a property, in my honest, humble opinion.
Thank you very much.
Big thank you to Matthew and Sandra.
Job well done. Thank you. I'd like to thank you all personally on behalf of Sopra Steria for attending to this meetup. We're very interested in hearing your opinion. So if you do happen to have some sort of a mobile phone that has QR code scanning function, and you're willing and able to take a second to put your opinion in writing, then we'd be very much obliged. And once that's done, we can go off and have some drinks and interact. There's just one thing I'd like you to show. We have quite a few people from Menditect right here next to Marcus. I think we have 5 people. If they could just stand up for a bit. They're right there. So take a good look at them. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to them. And then we've also got a lot of people from Mendix. Might be handy to show a bit of hands here, just to, right? So there's a product manager here, community team, etc. So it's just for your information. Thank you again for coming and for joining. And let's go and have a drink.